Have you ever been glued to the TV in shock at what you are seeing? I was recently, as I saw my local news station host an infertility town hall and bring to light the topic of miscarriage and infertility. Despite fertility often being mentioned on shows or in gossip magazines, the news is a whole different space. And to dedicate the better part of an hour to this, however, all of this started with one brave anchor who had the courage and steadfastness to bring this topic to light after her own experience. So, in this episode, I have the honor of bringing Stephania Jimenez, KSAT 12 anchor, on the podcast today with me as we discuss all the details of her story, how this event came to fruition, and the aftermath of this event in our community. Stay tuned for this one, guys. Welcome to the Tru Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Lea Nicole Trujillo, therapist turned fertility emotional wellness coach, and I'm here to share the tools that helped me and my clients reclaim their joy, unpause their lives, and triple their pregnancy rate. With a 100% success rate in emotional well-being and a 60% pregnancy rate, I'm here to radically transform your journey. Join me and my amazing guests for expert strategies, practical tips, and real-life trying to conceive stories with a dash of girl talk. So let's sprinkle some baby dust because it's time for Tru Fertility. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Tru Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Lea Trujillo, and I am joined by my very special guest, Stephania Jimenez, who is an anchor on KSAT 12, San Antonio news station, and actually is also a fertility warrior herself. Stephania, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah. Yeah, that was something that really stood out to me because I had heard from my in-laws that there was going to be a special infertility special on our local news station, and that one of the news anchors had shared her personal story. And honestly, I was just taken aback by the bravery of somebody to share so publicly. I think also when we have our local news anchors, they're very public figures within our community. And so to be so vulnerable and to share really took me aback. And then, two, I also thought it was so amazing to be able to use that platform to share critical information with other women that are struggling with infertility as well in our area and now hopefully beyond. And so I reached out to Stephania to kind of like make that connection and say like, "Hey, would you be up for sharing your story on my podcast?" And she was so gracious and so amazing to agree to do that with me today. And so, thus, we are here today doing this episode.
Yeah, funny story when it happened to me. So I had a miscarriage in November. I will go into like how I got there and all that stuff. But when that happened, I I it was interesting because I had so much support from people at work, like my bosses. I didn't, and that's something that I wasn't in that situation before. And yes, I have had other miscarriages, which I'll get to in a moment. But I felt so much support that it started to make me angry because I thought about all of the women and the families out there who don't get support, who are too afraid, who don't work with maybe understanding people who, some I was talking to my friend yesterday and she said, I had a miscarriage and I just went into work right after.
Yeah.
And I was really upset and I was going through all of these changes and I just didn't she didn't share it, but it's also because she didn't feel comfortable sharing. She
Yeah.
wasn't in an environment where she felt comfortable doing so. And because I felt good, I just started to feel for other people who don't have that opportunity. So that was kind of the impetus for
Yeah.
me sharing what happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's something that I wish our HR departments in general would be required to share that information with employees up front. When it happens, it's like, wait, do I even have any rights here if it's a miscarriage? And there's just a lot of misinformation out there.
Yes.
Again, you're so lucky that you felt really comfortable with your bosses. And we hope that for everyone else. But in the real world, that may not always be the case. So, again, just sharing
Correct.
our stories and learning more and sharing information about this topic will definitely help. So, I kind of want to bring it back a little bit so we can our
Sure.
listeners can get to know you a little bit more, and ask you some kind of more lighthearted questions before we get going. So,
Sure.
now that you are a San Antonian,
Mhm.
what is your favorite place to grab a margarita?
Okay. So I'm not much of a margarita drinker.
Okay.
I can't handle liquor.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. I just don't like the way it makes me feel, but I am into wine.
Okay.
So yeah, with honestly, I don't have a particular place. It's all about the mood, I guess. Like wherever I go, and as long as I'm with good people and in a good space, I'm happy with that. And there's so many cool places to go in San Antonio. And
Yes.
so I don't want to say this place is my favorite because I don't think I've explored as much of the city as I
Yeah.
where I can actually tell you that and feel confident and be like, out of all the places that I tested, Leah, this one's the best.
Next question. So we are filming this and it was just, or we are recording this and it was just the Super Bowl this past weekend. So are you a football
I,
fan? And if so,
no,
what team are you with?
no, no. You're like, what am I doing here? This girl doesn't drink margaritas, doesn't watch football. Look, I'm into so many things, politics, art, movies. But when it comes to sports, I am no sports maven. I swear, if I had to be a sportscaster, I'd just be like, yeah, the quarterback just scored a home run. It would just be a disaster. I love seeing people so happy
Yeah.
and into the game. I'm into the food. I'm into Super Bowl food.
Oh,
But yeah, it just doesn't affect me. There are so many things that I'm into that affect me that I'm like, okay, no, I can't
yeah.
be into one more thing.
Yeah. Honestly, same here. I don't really ever watch football. I did watch the Super Bowl. My husband
Mhm,
is a football fan, not
mhm.
not majorly, but he definitely likes to watch it. So I'm starting to watch it a little bit more since I've been with him, but I don't really go either way. I even made like a silly reel about how I had no idea what the heck was going on in the football in Super Bowl other than Taylor Swift is going to be there, I thought. So, all right, last question here. Mean Girls remake that is coming up, or it did come up this year. Such a classic movie, especially for our age group. What are your thoughts on that? Yay or
Okay.
nay? Excited or
So
not?
ordinarily with remakes, I
Yeah.
would say nay, because sometimes I'm like, oh, that's just something so special about a classic. But, language is a living, breathing thing. And that movie brought so many new phrases and terms into our vernacular that I'm curious to see what they'll do this time around, especially considering how people speak now.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see how those lines would change. So I can look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely curious to see, but honestly, I don't think it can have any competition with the original one. It was just, it's so iconic and honestly does not feel like it's been 20 years. It's like,
I
wait, what?
know.
So,
I was born in 85.
me
And it's funny
too.
because so many people are like, you know, I'm still in the mindset that it's like the early 2000s. So I'm like, oh, the 90s were just like 10 years ago. So when
Mm-hmm.
people bring stuff up, I'm like, I can't believe it. Like
Oh,
that's 20 years ago.
I know. It's amazing. I mean, I sound like an old woman now, but yes, time flies, seriously. All right. Well, thank you so much for answering those questions for us. But let's kind of go ahead and start today's episode. If you don't mind going into your story and just kind of
Mhm.
sharing that with us.
So I'll start with this. I just turned 39. And since I can remember, I've always wanted to be a mom. I just knew that that is always something that I wanted. My mom was a daycare provider and she used to take care of children in our home. So I just grew up always like around children and they just make me happy.
Mhm.
I love kids. But, kids need things.
Of course, they do.
Kids. And, me being in this industry, when you start out doing what I do, you're not making a lot and you have to move a lot. There's just not a lot of stability.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always thought, I always wanted to get, again, to have a family. And my husband and I we've been married 13 years, but I always said, okay, but now's not the time. I just don't feel it. I want to be in a situation where, where it's a little bit more stable. And I want to make sure that we have childcare figured out and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So a few years ago, this was when I got to Philadelphia, which was where I worked before I moved to San Antonio in 2021. I got pregnant and it was a surprise. No
Yeah.
fertility treatments. And I was super happy. Then it turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy, which was awful. I'm going to say this. If there's any part of this podcast that people pay attention to, it's this. As women, we know our bodies and we know when something is wrong. When that happened to me, I had a D&C because they knew that the pregnancy wasn't viable because of the hormone levels.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in, I got a D&C, and then they gave me a pill, which is like chemotherapy,
Mm-hmm.
which is a treatment after a D&C sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It made me extremely sick. Here's the problem. Because it was ectopic, it didn't take. So here I was really sick and I didn't know, it wasn't confirmed at that point that it was ectopic. And I was in so much pain a few days after the procedure.
Oh my
And
God.
I was calling, I mean, it hurt and I could take pain. I have a high threshold for pain, but it
Mhm.
felt like I almost couldn't walk, just like a bad cramp,
Yeah.
like an awful cramp that where you can't walk. I kept calling my doctor and he didn't take me seriously. He didn't, I said, look, I'm in pain. And he was just like, really? That's weird. But that was the response I got. And finally, I kept calling. Another doctor picked up and she said, go to the ER right now. When I went to the ER, they found a pint and a half of blood in my abdomen because it had already ruptured. So that confirmed it was ectopic. So I came very close to to getting sepsis, to getting an infection. So that was a whole other thing. And then I had to have another surgery. And so having that experience, I just remember it could have been all the medications
Mm-hmm.
and everything that they put, that I was just clouded. I mean, it was just devastating. I was crying and
That
I just,
Yeah, that's so
yeah, it was
traumatic. I'm so sorry to experience such a difficult, ectopic is, really hard to go through. But then to on top of that being not taken seriously and then to have to get to that point, I mean, I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
but I share that story because I want people to know that, yes, I respect doctors and I respect a medical opinion, but you have to be your own advocate. If you feel that uh, something is wrong with your body, or it just go with that intuition.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
100%.
there. Evolution has given us some very good things, and that's one of them. We know when something doesn't quite feel right. Um, and as a woman, I would say trust that. Trust your gut. Know when something is up. So I wanted to share that because I wanted people to know that. So that happened. And then I had early pregnancy losses since then. I tried to go to a fertility treatment center and none of those treatments worked.
Mm.
Um,
Did you do like IUIs or what were you attempting?
well, I did try to do an IUI when I came here to San Antonio. I did one.
Hmm.
And that didn't take. What they put me on Clomid
Yeah.
4 years ago when I was in Philadelphia. And by the way, that made me crazy. Like it just I felt like I could not focus at work, and I was so upset because I was like, you know, trying to get pregnant, wanting to get pregnant when you can't. That's like a full time job. If you've ever
Yeah,
been through it, you know that mentally you don't feel like yourself. You don't really feel good. And that's not a good feeling when you're like, I want to bring life into this world and I want to be happy and excited. And you're not
exactly. And
because you're
it's
hormonal.
amazing because again, like you can only predict so much. You don't know how your own body is going to respond to the different
And then,
medication treatments. It might have been fine for one person, but for whatever reason, you may respond totally different and have a totally different experience. So it's so
mhm,
hard to know what to predict. And then on top of it, as you mentioned, like it's a full-time job. Yeah, yes, definitely. And then when we get to other stages of assisted reproductive technology with adding in like any additional like injections and they have to be
mhm,
given at certain times, like
mhm.
it's so much work.
No, it really is, and I just wanna say to the people who are going through it and maybe are upset because they're upset, or they're upset because they don't feel good, um, it's okay, you know? It's a hormonal time, and I'm not saying that to be, reductive. I'm saying that because it's true. Your body's going through all these changes and you just give yourself grace
Yes.
and time
Mm-hmm.
and just be patient with yourself the same way you'd be patient with somebody else who was going through something similar. But yeah, so that was when I was in Philadelphia. When I came here, I also went on another pill that was supposed to do the same thing as Clomid, and that one didn't make me feel so bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had an IUI, and that didn't take.
Yeah.
So I was very upset, like very sad about that. And then I just said, you know what? If it doesn't happen, I prayed on it, and I just said, I Lord, if you're not going to give me the desire to be a mom, if you're not going to fulfill it, like if I still have this in me, then I guess it's meant to be. And so when it happens, it happens. A few months later, it happened. And I, I'm always on top of like I write down all of my dates, like with my cycle. So I was like, oh, I was so excited. And yeah, I was like 9 or 10 weeks along. So
I'm so sorry for your loss with that.
mhm.
Yeah, they can really take us aback when, you know, everything's going along and then it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. I'm so sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah, but like I said before, it happens. It happens so often, and I just if I could just kind of expand it to when we have these conversations, the reason they're so helpful is because I'm sorry, but for some people, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So we're having these conversations, and maybe for somebody who's listening, it'll kind of stir something up, or because I sometimes we judge or we dismiss people so easily, and we have no idea what they're going through,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
you know?
Mhm.
And it's not that we should assume that, oh, this person probably lost a bit. That's not what I'm saying. It's just for anything,
Mhm.
we should just give each other um grace and
Yeah.
love. And I know I sound like a hippie, but just going through my experience and all these years, just I remember telling my friends when I was going through, I mean, this is like years of like treatment and medications and all that. And I've just been like, thank you for listening, to my friends. And I just know that I'm sure I wasn't myself
Yeah. Yeah.
at work when these things were happening. So I don't want to, I hope that I don't judge anybody else
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
they're going through something.
definitely. So how long had you been trying then at this point? Has infertility taken too much from you? Are you unsure how you can keep going on this path? Maybe you've tried some affirmations, but it's just not cutting it. If this sounds like you need the Resilience Roadmap for Trying to Conceive. It's a free step-by-step guide to reclaim your joy and unpause your life that I use with clients to get unparalleled results. Get yours today by going to www.leanicolecoaching.com. That's LEANICOLE coaching.com, or check the show notes for the link.
Really trying on and off. I mean, I would say 6 years.
Yeah.
And I was even told by my again, I've moved around so often, so I've
Mhm.
had to see different OBGYNs, but, they've said, it seems like when you get pregnant, for you to get pregnant, you're gonna have to we're gonna have to be aggressive.
Mhm.
Um, and that's it. But the times that I've gotten pregnant, it only happened when I wasn't on medication.
So
So I don't know.
interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm,
I mean, the body is always a mystery, and that's the thing
mhm,
with fertility. We can try all the things, and, sometimes it works and other times it doesn't,
mhm,
and sometimes it works in the times we're least expecting something to happen. So
mhm,
it's always, definitely a mystery, and our body is going to do what it's going to do at certain times. And I think that's sometimes the hardest thing is to not have that control over that
mhm,
aspect when we've had
mhm.
control over so many other pieces of our life. But
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, especially when you're like, but and when I tell you about stuff I've done, buying tea, cutting sugar, changing my diet, to little things, eating more fruit, having more stuff with like whatever. It's so funny because I'm a journalist, right? We deal with facts, but it's so funny how your mind works when you want something so badly. You're like, okay, I don't care if this sounds crazy. I'm going to try it,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And so I, if you've been there before, I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. You really do all the things, and yeah, I think also I just want to point out it's also important that yes, try things that are evidence-based to help support you
Mhm,
and help improve your health, great. But
mhm.
also try to just beware of any, like, scams out there that are just trying to,
Yes.
like, take you without any actual, science behind anything that they're suggesting. So, we don't want you to fall prey to that. So,
No,
yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, that's another, I mean, of course, there are people that, you're in a vulnerable place. And I
Mhm.
hate to say it, but when that happens, some people will take advantage. So,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. Listen to what Leah just said.
Is there anything else you wanted to share about your story?
Now we're a few months removed from what happened, and for now I'm just being, right? And it's hard because you want to have answers for things and you want to say, okay, here's my next step. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's my game plan. And I have to tell you, I'm exhausted. I'm mentally, and it's not about giving up. I'm just being honest. I'm exhausted. I've wanted to be a mom for so long, and I have said this and I've made this very clear to my family and my husband. I said, if it doesn't happen for me, it is, or for us, it's going to bother me, but I can also live with it.
Yeah.
I have godchildren. It's not the same thing, but I am determined to make the best of it. And I haven't yet made a decision as to whether I want to go back to the fertility center and try something more aggressive. For right now, I'm giving myself space because I'm not there yet.
I think that's an amazing position to be in as far as, like, recognizing that at this moment, I need to give my mind and my body a break because you so deserve that. And sometimes we need that more than any other treatment in the world right now.
Hmm.
Is just to
Hmm.
give yourself that time and space to just be you and to just be in this moment instead of, constantly pushing and trying.
Hmm.
Um, I think, that will set you up for being in the best position, regardless of whatever path you decide to choose and whatever step you take next. And I think that that's, amazing that, you've kind of come to this place of acceptance with whatever the future may unfold for you.
Yeah.
So,
And for people, if you're going through something similar and you don't have the reaction that I have, that's okay. I just don't want anybody necessarily to compare themselves to me. We're all different. We have reasons for being different. I think the most important thing is to be open.
yeah, exactly. and which can be hard. You know, again, in a society when historically we haven't shared much about this topic.
Why?
I know. Why?
Why
Right?
though? Why is there, and I try to, because there's so many things that are just sort of wired into your brain. Sometimes you have a certain reaction to something and you're like, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel this way? Is it because um I've been taught that? Is that because I see that that's what other people do?
Yeah.
Or do I actually feel this way?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I feel ambivalent? I don't know. But it's one of those things. This has happened for, I mentioned about having the ectopic pregnancy, 50, 60 years ago, women would die
Mm-hmm.
from ectopic pregnancy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know why there's this silence or this shame. And I think that that's where my anger came from when I shared my story. And it was because of that. It was like, enough of the shame, enough of being quiet, because I used to think, oh, I'm just a private person. And I am. And it's okay to be a private person. But that's not really why I wasn't saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
because I was embarrassed.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. Had you shared before your YouTube video? And just to clarify for anyone else who's unsure what we're talking about, you went ahead and made a YouTube video sharing, the fact that you had a miscarriage recently and made that public.
Yeah, it was, I remember I had my DNC procedure on a Thursday and I made the video on a Sunday. So
Hmm.
just a few days later, I was in my home little office nook area, no
Hmm.
makeup,
Yeah.
glasses.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm just going to be real for a
Yeah.
moment. This is what's going on.
Yeah. And which again took a lot. I mean, had you shared before that? Anything
No,
like publicly? Yeah.
if you go on my Instagram page, Facebook, Twitter, you'll mostly see stuff related to work.
Hmm.
Maybe something silly
Yeah.
that happens at work, or something, or like pretty flowers or something, but I never, ever share um personal
Yeah.
things like that, ever.
Can you explain to us then, again, like it can be challenging just, for anyone to share because,
Hmm.
again, as you mentioned, there has been society kind of places this almost like shame around this aspect of like if you're
Right.
not able to conceive, it feels like this shameful place. It feels like there's this pressure on us that if we're not able to reproduce without any problem, that maybe there's something wrong with us. Like that, I think that's the message that we get. So what is it like to be a public figure in the community and share such a personal story? How was that for you?
Well, it's funny. I in being all it means when you're a public figure, it just means that more people see you or more people know of you, right?
Mhm.
That, to me, that's really all it means. But knowing that also carries a lot of responsibility.
Mhm.
Um, there is a lot of pressure when it comes to how you present yourself, how you speak, how you look, how you talk. And I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that it is what it is, because also, if you ever do something in public, yeah, try putting a video of yourself up on YouTube. How many people are going to comment or try to take you down? Oh, your eyebrows or your hair, or what are you wearing, or your voices.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. But um, when it came to me just sharing this, I guess I just felt more of a responsibility more than anything, because I'm not special.
Yeah.
This didn't just happen to me. What happens to people, the more research I started doing, I was like,
Yeah.
this happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I said, and if I knowing this logically, that it happens all the time, and that it's not my fault. We don't know why it happened. And I feel so bad and embarrassed. How do other women feel
Mhm.
who
Mhm.
don't have, who don't have, Um, maybe some of the things that I have, like a supportive work environment.
Was it scary when you first hit that publish video or publish button?
Of course, I get nervous, just like everyone else. I get anxious.
Mhm.
Um, but when it came to that, I just went and I just hit record and I just started speaking. And what I imagined was just talking to another woman.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
imagined myself having a conversation with another woman, and that's what it was.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thanks for sharing how that was for you because I
Mhm,
think sometimes maybe people even just can be just sharing with another person, just face to face
mhm,
or on a phone call. If somebody's disclosing that for the first time, that can be a lot. So I can only
mhm.
imagine again, just kind of wanting to get your perspective for what it was like to share so publicly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't even tell. I don't even remember at the time thinking, "Oh, I'm going to do this," and
Yeah.
it. I just did it. I just
Yeah.
it was impulsive, but it felt right.
Yeah.
So.
To go with your gut on that.
Mhm.
What made you then want to do a town hall on TV about fertility or
You,
infertility?
everyone. The When I posted that video,
Mhm.
and I had people not just writing on the
Uh-huh.
public comments, but writing to me, emailing me, sending me private messages and telling me their own stories,
Yeah.
or telling me that their daughters have gone through, or
Mhm.
that they went through. Like
Yeah.
I had men
Wow.
tell me in the 70s and 80s or whatever, like, "Oh, my wife and I, we lost," telling me all these things. And, it isn't just knowing that. And I'm just like, and I know that even for them, even though they sent me a private message, it kind of took a lot for them to share that with me. Um, and I always look at people's intentions. The intention there was to make me feel better or make me feel less like. So strangers doing this for me, and knowing how many people go through this,
Mhm.
I felt an even bigger sense of responsibility, because I
Mhm.
was also reading some of the things that people went through, that, oh, they miscarried and they still had to go to work. And these were people working minimum wage jobs. They're already barely making it. And then to go through something so emotional. And we know that a lot of workers tend to deal with abuse.
Yeah.
So just knowing that, I said, you know what? We have to talk about this. We have
Mhm.
to have the discussions. People need to know what their rights are, and they need to know when they can go and get help and go to a doctor. My town hall did not solve every problem with infertility,
Yeah.
but what I'm hoping is that at least it provided some information, and that it was just the start of
Mhm.
something, so that more people feel comfortable talking about infertility and thus getting help.
Yeah. Well, I think that's beautiful that you did that and saw a need in the community and wanted to do something proactive to help support other people in the same situation. So, since the town hall, I'm assuming you also received even more messages and people
Mhm.
reaching out. What is it like receiving all of these messages? This is your personal invite to join our exclusive Facebook group to dive deeper into the world of fertility with bonus clips, behind the scenes content, and intimate discussions. Here, you can connect with fellow tribe members, share your experiences, and contribute your insights to shape the future of the show. And it's easy to join. Just search Tru Fertility Tribe on Facebook, answer a few questions, and you're in. I also have the direct link in the show notes below. See you there.
Really heartwarming. Can I say that even this morning, I got a message from a man
Wow.
who told me that he had been through the same thing with his wife, um, years ago. I'm touched.
Yeah.
I'm touched. It doesn't matter how many messages I get. And yes, many people go through this, but when it happens to you, it's just so devastating.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment and thank all of the people who wrote to me. Thank you. I think it helped me feel less alone.
Yeah. That's great. It's just really the power of connection and community there that's really shining through. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now. And I hate to go back to, you know, I think I do think that so many studies are going to be done out of the pandemic and what it did to us
Mhm. Mhm.
mentally. We had the CDC rule about isolating for a week, and we took it really seriously. So we've been isolating for years. It changed us.
Yeah.
And so I think for some reason now, whenever anybody's vulnerable in an open or a public way, it just, I don't know, I just feel like it hits people differently.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. Um, Kind of going back to the aftermath of this town hall. Have you heard of any additional effects that it's had within the local community in regards to fertility or our residents?
So there was a portion of the town hall where I had invited people to send me their questions.
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel like slowly people are still are coming out and just kind of writing and asking questions. I think people just want to feel I think the initial thing is people just want to feel comfortable
Yeah.
enough to raise their hands and ask a question.
Mhm.
So I think that's where we still are.
Yeah.
And that's why your podcast is so important,
Mhm.
having different women coming out and speaking about their experiences because we all need that.
Definitely. Um I also kind of want to talk about the fact that we are in San Antonio.
Mm,
I'm Hispanic. I You are Hispanic as well.
mhm,
And just within our culture, in case the listeners who are not from San Antonio's
mhm.
a majority Hispanic community. So, based on that strong culture, do you feel like there's any additional layers of stigma or, shame surrounding infertility based on that? What are your thoughts on that?
The Hispanic culture, like so many other cultures, um, is very much about family, very much about family and constantly being together. And it's not, it's funny. It can be a very secretive culture,
Hmm.
but if you know this about Hispanic families, they're always in each other's business. I'm just saying, they're
Yeah.
not very good on privacy.
Yeah.
Yet they're very secretive.
Yeah. It's like
Isn't
a
that something?
double-edged sword. Yeah,
Yeah, mira, ese
definitely.
secreto. Shh, no digas nada. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just so or like my mom does this thing, just quick side note, where when she's whispering to tell a secret, it's louder.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. Like it's even louder when she's whispering
Oh
than
my
when
gosh.
so wonderfully symbolic, right? I will say this. I love my culture and they are very loving, but this is where what I've noticed in my family.
Mhm.
Um, some questions are very intrusive.
Mhm.
For example, you get married or you've been married for a while. Hey, when are you gonna have kids?
Oh, that's even before you would get married sometimes. Yeah.
And it's just like you have no idea how charged that question is. First of all, there are a lot of people who don't want to have kids,
Mhm.
and that's okay.
Mhm.
Okay, that's another thing too. I mean, it's okay not to want that. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, if you are in a situation where you're having fertility trouble, the last thing you want is to be answering people's questions about that. You don't want to get into it. And
Oh.
also the unsolicited advice from
Oh,
people.
it's off the chain. Yeah, it's ridiculous all the things that you hear, and I mean, they don't know what to say sometimes. I think they are unsure, and so they just go with the most basic advice that they have heard. Just relax, just go on vacation. Like, I don't know why you're stressed so much. It's gonna happen, no problem, right?
Yeah,
So
like I told you, it was like I'm exhausted. What
yeah,
do you mean? But I think it's not stigma so much as it is pressure.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely
Pressure.
the pressure. Like, my dad has 56 cousins, so it's like, it seems strange almost when you're in a marriage, and if you don't have children in this culture, then sometimes you can kind of be looked at as why is she being weird? Like what's going on there? Um,
Or,
mhm.
or, because I know it's happened in my own family when you see a couple that doesn't have a child. Aw.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
And it's like, again, it's okay. What if they don't want to? Like,
Mhm.
and that's what I mean about being open, not necessarily divulging everything you think, but like, hey, maybe they're happy. Maybe, like
Maybe it's
just
okay to
chill.
go a different route. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Um, how do you think sharing publicly has affected you and your personal journey?
Hmm. I think it's made me more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it kind of broke. It was an icebreaker. Like I told you, I've always been
Mhm.
a private person. I can tell you that when I was in Philadelphia, one of my best friends from college came to visit me, and she wanted to go out to a club, and I was in the club, like kind of looking around. I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable. What if somebody gets a weird picture of me and puts just because that can kind
Yeah.
of be how it is in Philadelphia. And my mother was always like, watch what you do in public. And with this, it just kind of, I'm much more relaxed
Yeah.
about everything. So I think it's been very positive for me, but I also have to say that that's also because of where I was mentally when I shared what I shared. I didn't feel pressure. No one told me to do it.
Mhm.
Um, no one told me not to, no one told me not to do it. I did it because I felt that it was right for me.
Mhm.
And I think that's why
Yeah.
I'm at the point where I think it's actually been a really good
Really
thing
good.
for me. And yeah, and I think it's kind of sweet, when you're just as a woman, it's kind of nice to be the like older sister
Mm.
to so many women. And I think it's nice that I relate to so many people and so many people relate to me. And that's it. There's no, oh, she's on TV. No, I'm just like you.
And it's nice to know that again, like sharing your story not only gives back to other people, but also had some benefits for you as well.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
sharing your story can also add to this extra layer of understanding everything that you've gone through and kind of
Mhm.
putting it in a different you have a different level of understanding it. So what would you say to women who maybe haven't shared anything yet? Maybe they've only shared with, their partner, but are thinking about it. What would you tell them?
Don't do anything that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Um, Not everybody feels comfortable sharing or wants to share. And so to women, do what you want.
Yeah.
Do what you feel like doing. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you don't want it because you don't feel like it, you don't want to talk about it, just don't feel pressured
Yeah.
into doing anything that you don't want to do.
Yeah, you need to do it at your own time based on what feels right for you. And
Hmm.
honestly, we have our own kind of internal compass for who we feel safe sharing what to as well, and to kind of lean into that as well too, you know?
Yeah, and you don't owe anybody an
Explanation.
explanation.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's like one of the best things that I've learned is no, that's a complete sentence. It's an answer. It's good enough.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that's great. That's absolutely true. I did get another question from somebody else who wanted to ask you, are there any tips for how to make it through this journey?
Well, for one, I'm going to tell you this: sleep.
Yeah.
Whatever you have to do to calm down, be a little bit more at ease. And I know it sounds super hokey, but sometimes when you're trying to get pregnant, you're just wound up and it's just hard for you to go to sleep. But if you don't rest, you're not going to be able to do anything. And I promise you, you're not going to be happy. So, on the physical side of it, make sure that you get enough sleep, cool it on the caffeine,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is also another thing. But I believe a lot in journaling and writing down how you feel. And I like to track what I write, and I like to put dates on it
Mhm.
so that I can track, oh, this day I was feeling like this or like that. But I think it's really important. to know where you are
Mhm.
mentally
Mhm.
and to take that time for yourself
Mhm.
to figure that out. Because of all the fertility treatments that I've had, these are things that I've learned that now are not negotiable. And
Honestly, yeah, those are things are so important. Those are things that I've talked about in the past or have worked with clients on. Mental health is huge. It's actually the number one reason why women stop treatment prematurely. And yeah, like the sleep, that's integral to how you're feeling. It affects so many things that go on in your body. And so you just even noticing that again, like there's a reason you're noticing that the sleep is important, right?
Mhm.
And then the caffeine too. I mean, it makes you more anxious. So if you're already anxious based on your, where you're at fertility wise, you're kind of adding it on with that caffeine. It's just also stimulating and can add on to the anxiety as well. And I also love journaling as well. That's the best way for me to kind of like vent, let it all out. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
So,
just writing, and you know why? It forces you to step away from everybody and everything that's around you and
mhm,
just writing stuff down. And I think that that's the other thing too. Sometimes we're so busy
mhm,
with our lives, just everything with our families, doing things for other people. There's work, and then there's like errands, and there's household chores, and oh, we got to make food, and we got there's all that stuff that to take when you're also going through fertility treatments. Give yourself time, and also find a funny show. Find something on TV that you love. I love Steel Magnolias. I mean, it's not a funny show, but it's not Steel Magnolias, but it's Sweet Magnolias on
okay.
Netflix. Are just, just shows that just make you feel good and relaxed. Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. Thank you so so much for sharing. Is there anything else that you wanted to let the listeners know before we close this episode?
So I just want everybody to know that if you're going through this and listening, that you're not alone, and you're not wrong for feeling the way that you do. And let's all support each other. And also, I'm here. If you want to write to me on Instagram, Facebook, I'm here. And I just want everybody to know that they're loved and that we're here for them.
Great. And as far as writing to you, is there any way you mentioned your Instagram? Can you share your Instagram handle with us and I'll put it in the notes?
KSAT Steph.
All right. Awesome. Well, I'll put that down in the notes. And other than that, I thank you so, so much for being with me here today, for sharing your story and with all of this tips and experience that you've had sharing in such a public manner. You really are an inspiration to us all. And I really hope that, again, your actions reverberate and bring positive change to this area. Thank you so much for your time.
Amen. Thank you. And if you ever need anything, I'm here.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you for allowing me to share these stories, information, and tips with you, or really just allowing me to connect with you on a subject that's so dear and important to your life. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and do me a solid and share this with your friends or anyone that you think might benefit from hearing this. Also, I'd love it if you could leave a rating or review for a deeper dive on today's episode, bonus content, and to connect with others in this space. I invite you to join Tru Fertility Tribe Facebook group. And last but not least, let's be friends on Instagram where I post almost daily. You can find me at Tru Fertility. Wishing you all baby dust. Till next time. Bye.